Exactly. So also for your information, this event will be recorded. So if you don't feel safe, please turn off your camera and also please rename yourself. So we're totally fine if you are anonymous in this event. And if you have later any questions after the presentations or during the discussion, you can also write it in the chat, and then I will read it for you. So there's no need to expose yourself. But once again, dear colleagues, partners, and speakers, it's my pleasure to warmly welcome you to today's event, VNRs 2024 Alternative Reporting and Stakeholder Engagement, organized in collaboration between SDG Lens, Action for Sustainable Development, and ECE RCM. My name is Magdalena Patalong, and I'm your moderator and facilitator today. And I'm very happy to see that so many experts and representatives from civil society and maybe other stakeholders joined us in today's meeting. So we are going to talk about mainly voluntary national reviews, or VNRs shortly. And it's a process that plays a vital role in assessing and presenting national progress toward the 2030 Agenda, its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the pledge to leave no one behind. And member states are encouraged to conduct these reviews regularly and inclusively, which means engaging stakeholders like from civil society, academia, private sector, and so on. In 2024, 36 countries presented their VNRs, including 5 from Europe, which are Armenia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Spain. And today, I'm very honored to welcome and to hear from civil society representatives from almost all of these 5 countries as they share their experiences with stakeholder engagement in the VNR process. And some of our speakers have also contributed to the development of so-called alternative or shadow reports, which are independent analysis produced by civil society to offer a critical or complementary perspective on national progress toward the 2030 Agenda. And these reports often serve as a response or they are a supplement for official government VNRs, providing very valuable insights into areas that might be underreported or even overlooked. And in addition to exploring the drafting process and findings of these alternative reports, we will also hopefully have the time to reflect on how their results compare to official VNRs. To kick off our discussion, we will begin with a keynote presentation on the People's Scorecard, which is a powerful methodology designed to enable civil society to collectively assess and measure progress on various aspects of SDG implementation under the 2030 Agenda. And I hope that our presenter and speaker will join us by the moment that we will have the keynote. But we still have a little bit of time, because before we dive into the program, I'd like to hand the floor to our event organizers to share a few opening remarks. And I first invite Nelia Rahimova, representative of SDG Land.
Yeah, thank you very much, Magdalena, and I'm happy to see that colleagues are still joining. Thank you for joining us. I here represent actually different hats, but I will speak on behalf of SDG Lens. It's a project and a network of Eastern Partnership countries, which we try to put together in order to motivate colleagues and build their capacity on monitoring and advocacy activities in SDGs. And already for 3 years, this project successfully produced multiple shadow and spotlight reports. And of course, today we also will see some of them during the sessions. We believe that it's really important still, even we see that there is a decline in the interest to SDG agenda among some member states and international organizations. We still believe that this framework can be used in a different ways for advocacy purposes and still has a value. And I am sure that it will be continued within the international arena one way or another. That's why it's still essential to continue to collect alternative data and produce shadow reports. And I'm happy that today we will have I believe at least 4 out of 5 countries talking about their research, their publications that they are either prepared or still finalizing. So yeah, I'm happy that we are here together, and wish everyone luck. And please prepare your questions for the discussions. I'm sure colleagues will be happy to share with you more insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nelia. I would also like to welcome Hanna Gunnarsson, who's member of the ECE, RCM governing body representing the EU sub-region.
I think that calls for, this is a reminder that those who speak today don't use too many long acronyms. And if you do, please spell them out to make it accessible to everyone on the call. I'm Hanna Gunnarsson. I'm for Women Engaged for a Common Future. Our acronym is WCF. And I'm also in the governing body of ECRSM, which is the Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism for this region called UNICE. And I think what I usually call this region is it's a beast of a region. And maybe we will see this as we listen to you today, but we have very different, we have a very large scope. So you have everything from North America to Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Caucasus, Central Asia, and Israel, and all of this fits into one space. And this meeting now, like we've been seeing in our region for the last few years, like heightened geopolitical tensions, rising militarism, seeing conflicts. There are challenging values of peace, democracy, and cooperation, etc. And all of that is happening at the same time as there's a pushback on civic space. We're seeing, for example, the foreign agent laws in Georgia and Kyrgyzstan and other countries. And that's when mechanisms like ours really become so important, because we act on the regional level, and then there are sub-regional like fingers of our network too. But sometimes in these kind of political situations, you can't go to your government and speak directly to them. And then what you can do though is to come to the regional level, and you can get support and the solidarity of international civil society, and you can speak truth to power to your government through other organizations and other people who can say it on your behalf. So the importance of mechanisms like the ECRSM has never been more important. And also, I know Nadia said, yes, we don't know Agenda 2030, where is it heading? Are we heading somewhere? Are we heading the right direction in our region? Nevertheless, even though we don't know where it's heading, the civil society mechanisms like ECRSM are like a really beautiful space for like learning from each other and building like other types of networks and not, I don't want to say cooperation because it's such a jargony word, but you know what I mean, like this kind of mobilization towards a better future. And I don't want to keep it too long, but I wanted to say a few things about the meeting today. Is that we've had a few for the next years, so we have had the volunteer national reviews that we're going to discuss today. And then for the next year, we're already starting planning for the regional meeting, which will happen in the beginning of April. And there will be other countries then presenting. And so far, those who have reported are Belarus, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Finland, Germany, Israel, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, and Malta. I'm not sure that all of those will report. Who knows? Some of them were meant to report this year, like Israel, but didn't. Maybe they won't next year. I'm not sure. But for those of you who are coming maybe from these countries, you can already now start thinking about how do I mobilize on the regional level. You can listen to your peers here today and see how do they get involved in the alternative report. And if you don't see an alternative report being drafted, you can kind of engage and do it. And we are here to kind of support you and give you ideas for what tools to use. So with that said, I'm really keen on learning from the lessons learned from the 2024. I'm sure there will be a lot of like yeah, challenges that you met, but hopefully also there's some challenges that we can learn from and see like, hey, maybe we can strategize and how do we do it better for next year. And yeah, I'm really interested to hear what's going to come out of discussion today. So welcome everyone, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and also thank you for your encouraging words for VNR countries next year, or civil society representatives from those countries, and but also your offer to support them in this process of reviewing. So thank you, and I can also see that Olli Henman joined us, who's our speaker or keynote speaker today. Olli, are you ready? Or you still need a minute to settle?
No, I'm ready. I'm sorry I had trouble with my laptop. I had to restart it just before this meeting started. But no, great to be here with you all.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy that you managed to join us perfectly on time. Olli Henman is Global Coordinator at Action for Sustainable Development. And today he will present the People's Scorecard, a methodology developed by Action for Sustainable Development to enable civil society to measure progress of SDG implementation. And yeah, I'm very excited to hear more about it. And I invite you now, Olli, for your upcoming 10 minutes to present the People's Scorecard.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Magdalena and Hannah and Nelia and all of the organizers. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and to share some ideas. And I see quite a few familiar faces and names on the call. So great to reconnect with you all. And looking forward, and looking forward to hearing your reflections on how things have worked in this past year. And also beginning to think ahead, as Hannah said, towards the next year's VNRs. So to help to set the scene, hopefully I can share my screen here. I just have a few slides, and some of you will already be familiar with this. So I hope it's helpful also to those who might be coming to this information for the first time. But just to give you a little bit of background in terms of how we work as Action for Sustainable Development. So this is something that we've been following really since the very start of the process of the HLPF, so back to 2015, 2016, and then by the time we got to 2018, 2019, we realized that it was important to try to measure the changes that were happening or not happening at country level with the VNRs. And we wanted to try to find a more comparative way to do that. And so in the last few years, we've really tried to focus in on the model of the People's Scorecard as one way to help us to actually compare between different countries to see what is the progress like, where are the gaps, what are some of the ways that we can strengthen coalitions at the national level to hold their governments to account. So this gives you a little bit of background in terms of some of the learnings that we had in the first half of the 2030 agenda. We know that many countries do provide space, at least for a formal stakeholder engagement, but it's sometimes lacking in terms of real depth of engagement, and the kind of wider ongoing sort of process can be quite limited. So you might have a moment where governments engage when they're doing the VNR, but then what happens next? How do they then assess progress the next time around? How do they make sure that there's that sort of ongoing dialogue? We know that there are often assessments around the time of the VNRs, but then what wider impacts do they have? How does it change policy in your own countries? What are some of the longer term outputs? How does that then link to the longer changes that we want to see? And then thirdly, the data. I think, unfortunately, we're still seeing that data availability and transparency is still a challenge. Some countries do provide more comprehensive data. Others will use a kind of picking and choosing of certain data points. What can we do as civil society also to bring our own data and our own analysis? And then crucially, the question of financing. I think many of you on this call will be very familiar that the means of implementation is a big gap. And we know that in the coming year, there's going to be the Financing for Development conference in Spain. Could that be a moment to try to catalyze more financing towards the SDGs? And crucially, then, how does that impact on leaving no one behind? How do we make sure that if there are more resources, that those resources actually reach communities that are so often left behind? So, from the learning that we picked up from working with many of you over the years, it still feels that member states are not really unlocking this transformative potential of the 2030 agenda. And we really hope that working with you, we can keep that momentum and help to drive things forward. So now I'm just going to give you some ideas on what we can do to help and how we might work in partnership with some of you. As I'm sure you're aware, thanks to the Swiss government, actually, we have support for about 20 coalitions each year. Unfortunately, because it's ODA, we can't really use that within most European countries, but we can support those in Central Asia and in the Caucasus, and we have worked, with some of you on this call in Georgia, in Belarus, and in other countries where we've tried to help to build coalitions and to enable voices to be heard. We then share a lot of this information through the website, and we really work with you to then bring voices into the UN in New York wherever possible, as well through the major groups and other stakeholders process. So the scorecard itself, and why might it be useful to you? So the idea is that for the scorecard, what we're trying to do is to really assess the scope of implementation. And we break this down into different areas: the policy environment, the institutional capacities of the actual institutions, and then how far they've engaged stakeholders and civil society. We know that next year is going to be a crucial year again, now with 2025, 10 years on and only 5 years to go. So what can we do to really remind governments that this is the progress we want to see? Where are the gaps? How can we ensure that the results actually deliver? And this is really coming from a civil society point of view. So the way it's done, as you'll be familiar, is very much around coalition building. Where possible, the resource that we have can help you to bring together a diverse range of civil society groups within the country, do an online survey, and then also host in-person dialogues where possible to actually connect people working on key goals under review and make sure that they can then collectively come up with a scoring. And we do actually try to score each goal to give a comparative score. So I guess the question to all of you, and we open this up every year, is there already some kind of a national coalition in your country? Is there something you can build on before? Or how can you build something new, as Hannah said, and how can you make sure if you are building something new that this is reaching out across all the different relevant communities, that you're gender balanced, you're reaching out to different age groups and disability accessible to make sure this is an inclusive process, and that you include people also outside the capitals, a much more geographically diverse mix to try to really make sure that anything that comes out reflects the broad views of civil society. And we do have a slide here. This is partly based on the major groups and other stakeholders, but trying to make sure that if you do put together a coalition, that you reach each of these key communities and that they are included in the dialogues. And then we provide a toolkit that can help you to assess progress. And as I said, different areas, looking at different key aspects of the agenda, first of all, and then going into the 17 goals specifically. And so I can share, the more detailed toolkit afterwards. But one of the things that we changed in the last year or two was the scoring, because we noticed, unfortunately, that in some countries things were going backwards rather than forwards. So we added scoring that goes down to -5 as well as up to +5. So the idea here is that you as a group would come together to discuss, based on any survey feedback that you get from civil society groups within your country, to give a scoring of where you think the progress is on each goal. So each goal will have its own separate score, whether it's gone up a little bit, 1 or 2, or whether it's actually going backwards. You can go down, as I said, down to -5. So this really gives you a visual picture of how you see progress within your country. And where possible, we then suggest that you come back together afterwards to really bring voices together to validate the scoring that you've come up with, to make sure that this is really embedded in that community knowledge. And then finally, once you have that draft ready and once you've done that goal by goal analysis, we would recommend that you bring that together, share it first with your own partners and then with the government officials. And we know that this can sometimes be a challenge depending on the dynamic with the government in your country, whether you might have a meeting before the HLPF or after the HLPF as a follow-up to continue a dialogue and to show governments that there is a different view on how things are going, and encouraging them to open up the process to a wider range of voices. So finally, just a few ideas on, after the VNR and after the HLPF. I know that in some countries like Spain, you already have these ongoing dialogues that will continue after the VNRs, and you'll have that multi-sectoral coalition. You might have regular meetings with the relevant ministry. You might have your own particular plan that you want to maintain the pressure and identify specific areas like financing, as we said before. In some cases, there might be a follow-up with the UN resident coordinator office. Perhaps Kazakhstan, I'm not sure. It might be that the resident coordinator can help to play a role, even if the government is less open, and you can tie it into the UN's national planning process as well. So you can think a little bit creatively around the best way to keep that momentum going. And those are the key points I wanted to share. Let me stop the screen share there. But I'd be very happy to take suggestions and ideas. I think it would be helpful also for me to get any feedback from those of you who have done the scorecard, because I know quite a few of on the call have done the scorecard. If there's anything else we can do to improve the support that we can provide as well, I'm happy to take that feedback. So thank you, Magdalena. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ollie. Thank you for sharing and outlining the process of civil society engagement during the during the review, but also doing own alternative reporting and outlining the steps how it could look like. Are there any questions from our listeners or guests here in the meeting?
Just a small remark, if I'm allowed. Hello, everyone again. I just want to thank you, Action for Sustainable Development, Oli and Nicholas, for giving us opportunity. I'm representing Georgia today, Caucasus Environmental NGO Network, and we had this pleasure to leverage the small financing from the Action for Sustainable Development and launch the survey in Georgia as well. Unfortunately, the launch of the survey coincided very turbulent political circumstances in Georgia, and we are still struggling to finalize this the survey, because if we wanted to make it as representative as possible, it requires to mobilize too many civil society organizations. But due to the unprecedented circumstances in Georgia right this moment, it's quite challenging for me right this moment, but I hope that I will handle it and finalize. And just to briefly summarize, as a civil society organization representative, this is a quite strong tool to generate alternative perspectives, which is the complementary to the national reports. No, I'm saying not only the complementary, but in some cases showcase the only real data and only real situation that the country is, because in most cases, for example, in case of Georgia, in the report, in the official report, we can see the crucial and critical challenges that we are facing right this moment in the country, compared to the shadow report and people's scorecard. So thank you again, Oli, and Action for Sustainable Development, for this opportunity and for your support during this whole period.
May I ask some, Oli?
One second, please. Yeah, thank you very much, Sofiko. I would first give the word briefly to Hannah, who raised her hand once.
Actually, Kaisha can go before me. It's fine.
Okay. It's okay?
Thank
It's
Kaisha.
okay. Yeah, because it's Kazakhstan. I wrote many times messages, and now I find what finally you will send us new toolkit for our, for 2025, because we know we are prepared to start our research since December. So, and it will be nice to have this as soon as possible. And just for clarified, Oli, this 10 points which our cognitive form, it's same cognitive form, yeah, for survey, and also but these 10 key indicators which we should to provide research for -5 to +5 scale. So it's same, still same, or we will change this. Another one question, what about this 5 priority SDG for under UN for 2025 report and VNR report? Should we take attention in our people scorecard reports for this specific 5 goals? What do you recommend us?
Thank you, Kaisha. Maybe Oli, very short answer.
Yeah.
Yes, sure, absolutely. No, great to see you, Kaisha. And yes, I will come back to you also by email. So, sort of three points. Firstly, on the toolkit, yes, we are just making a few very small adjustments to the toolkit, but it will follow very much the same pattern that we've had in previous years. So there will be 2 parts to the scorecard again. You're right. The first 10 kind of cross-cutting areas, which are just to give you a sense of how are things changing, what's the engagement like with the government, which are the key agencies that might be leading. So those are the sort of 10 initial points that you look at. And then for the second part, it's all 17 goals. So to answer your second question, we don't only focus on the 5 thematic goals under review. We look at all 17 because I know it's a little bit confusing and the UN doesn't always make it clear, but the idea was the thematic review is separate to the VNRs. So they're 2 separate processes that both happen at the HLPF, but the VNRs should cover all 17 goals, not only the 5 thematic goals. So that would be the ideal, that we'd look within the scorecard at all 17. But yeah, I can come back with more details by email.
Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you so much.
are you considering them as a goals, or they are just they have a other name, like principles or something like this? They are not goals. These 5P.
Shall I answer that as well, Magda? I think yeah. So this is another way that it's sometimes classified. You're right. So they sometimes group the 17 goals under the 5 Ps. So people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. But that doesn't change the 17 goals. Underneath that, you still have the same 17 goals.
Thank you, Oli, for clarifying, and I hope it's also clear now. What are the differences between those different aspects? Hannah, you wanted to
no, I find the scorecard, I think I really like the idea of the scorecard. I'm just wondering, how do you I mean, like everyone is scoring in a very subjective way, right? And it's very hard to maintain kind of is there any process where you kind of try and standardize it, or is it fine that it's very varied in how you score it? Or how can you measure them if, yeah, arguably everyone will score quite differently?
That is one of the key challenges, Hannah. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. We have to be a little bit careful with the scoring because yes, I know that different countries will have a different interpretation of the scoring, but we do try to provide some guidance, and normally we do end up with some way of comparing goal by goal. So normally we do a goal by goal comparison. But it's true that, you might have a country that's starting from a low base, but they feel there's been quite a bit of progress in that particular year, whereas another country may have a high base, but actually it's going down. So you can end up with slightly unusual results. So we try to also add some narrative description. And this is what Nicolas who Sopiko mentioned. Nicolas spends a lot of his time trying to get those nuances, and that will be included also in the toolkit. But yeah, it's not a perfect. There isn't a perfect sort of scientific answer, I'm afraid. But we have to give a little bit of narrative context each time.
Ollie, thank you very much also for the clarification in the end. And with regard to time, I would like to move on to our next part, which is the presentations from civil society representatives on their experiences with stakeholder engagement and the VNR process, and also on their experience of, not all of them, but some of them also drafting alternative reports and the results. And our speakers will present in alphabetical order. So we'll move from Armenia to Austria, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Spain. And each speaker will have 7 minutes for their presentation. And if you have some very urgent question, clarification question, please write it in the chat. But I would, with regard to time, first ask to speakers to present and then encourage you to reserve your specific questions and points for discussion until after the presentations, as there will be dedicated time for a more in-depth conversation at stage. All right, so I would invite first Harutun Gevorgyan, expert from Green Lane NGO, a non-profit organization in Armenia, to share our civil society insights on alternative reporting and People's Scorecard.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, let me introduce Armenia's third voluntary shadow report on sustainable development. This report has been prepared by a dedicated team of experts to reflect of Armenia's progress toward achieving of sustainable goals. So as you may know, these 5 principles are the people, prosperity, planet, peace, and partnership. And let me introduce each of them. Yeah, excuse me. The current shadow, I'm going to talk about all of them. So the past 4 years have been unprecedented for Armenia due to several major challenges. First of them was COVID-19 pandemic. So this global crisis impacted all aspects of life, from health to education and livelihoods. And the second one was military aggregation. In 2020, large-scale hostilities in Nagorno-Karabakh led to mass displacement and loss of lives. This situation escalated further in 2023 with a 10-month blockade, ethnic cleansing, and severe humanitarian crisis. Over 115,000 people were forcibly displaced to Armenia within days, creating immense pressure of national resources. Despite those challenges, Armenia demonstrated powerful resilience. So in October 2023, the government launched extensive support programs for refugees, including social protection mechanisms, healthcare, education, and psychological services. Social support systems were expanded to address vulnerabilities while focusing on creating self-sustaining opportunities for displaced populations. Armenia maintained steady progress toward achieving in SDG commitments, and particularly poverty level have decreased, supporting by social and economic reforms. The poverty rate fell from the 25% in 2021 to 24% in 2022. The unemployment rate also improved, declining from 18% in 2022 until 13.5% in 2022. Investment in agriculture, education, and healthcare further strengthened Armenia's human capital development. Armenia has been actively engaged in promoting peace and collaboration with neighboring countries. So Armenia initiated peace agreement with Azerbaijan to ensure mutual recognition of territorial integrity and to establish clear borders. The Crossroads of Peace project aims to improve regional communication and transform relations from conflict to cooperation. And efforts to normalize relations with Turkey continue with the potential of significant positive regional impact. Armenia collaborates with key international organizations such as United Nations, the European Union, the World Bank, and other financial and development institutions and donor organizations. Those partnerships focus on enhancing sustainable development, advancing social cohesion, and addressing economic challenges. Through these partnerships, Armenia has implemented reforms to improve the business environment, attract foreign investments, and develop critical sectors such as agriculture, tourism, and technology. Additionally, collaboration with global organizations supports Armenia is addressing climate change and promoting green initiatives. Promoting peaceful, inclusive societies is essential for Armenia's sustainable development. This means ensuring justice for all and building effective, accountable institutions at all levels. Armenia is currently in a period of relative peace following the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, thanks to ceasefire agreement. While hostilities have ended, tensions between Armenia and Azerbaijan still exist with occasional border violence. The war left deep scare, displacing many families and creating ongoing humanitarian needs. Ensuring the rule of law, protecting human rights, and strengthening democratic institutions are crucial for building a stable, lawful society. Over the past 2 years, Armenia has made significant efforts to protect human rights and establish better governance. This government also focused on judicial reforms and anti-corruption initiatives. The justice system reform strategy outlines efforts to strengthen the independence of the justice system and improve transparency. Armenia has also progressed to reducing corruption as reflected in its improved rank of the Corruption Reception Index. Armenia is also a member of the Open Government Partnership, which promotes transparency and accountability of the governments. And actually, civil society organizations play a key role in promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions. Their recommendations for Armenia's future focus on different aspects, including good governance, education and skills training, promote entrepreneurship, invest in infrastructure, social inclusion, environmental protection, international cooperation, and healthcare in social services, etc. and on. So this is the summary of the shadow report, and more details you can find in the report. And please feel free if you have any questions. This is a short review of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arutun, for showing us the results of Global People's Scorecard of progress, and also summarizing the results of your alternative report. And colleagues already posted the link in the chat, so you can read the report under the link. Thank you very much. If there are no clarification questions, I would like to move to the second presenter. And if you have any points for discussion, as mentioned, please keep it for our discussion later after the presentations. So our next speaker is Bernhard Zlanabitnik from representative of SDG Watch Austria and director at EU Umweltbüro. And I'm very, I welcome you to reflect on national VNR processes and the role of civil society.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, Magdalena. Thanks for the introduction also, and it's really great to see so many of you. I have seen throughout the year all over the place. I'm representing SDG Watch Austria here today. So we are a cross-sectoral network of civil society organizations with the goal, of course, to have a good implementation of the Agenda 2030 in Austria. I'm part of the steering group. We are 4 in the steering group. We do mainly, of course, political advocacy, lobbying, but also information and networking and events. I would like to highlight our annual SDG conference. We did 4 times so far. I will come back later to it, but this is something that really created something between the different stakeholders, because we always co-organize it with the government and other stakeholders. 3 times in Vienna, and this year the first time on a regional level in a southern part of Austria that has dedicated its work program, the governmental work program, to the SDGs. What are the in general, our recommendations for government, I mean, to have it high on the political leadership and responsibility, also to give financing support to civil society organizations working on it, that the parliament is engaged, that there is a gap analysis, that academia is engaged. It was very lucky for us that 17 or even more universities founded the so-called Uninets, and they looked into the SDG implementation from academia, from a scientific perspective, and it really helped us with our arguments. Our main goal, and still, of course, we're not there, that the SDGs, that the national budget is linked to the SDGs, and of course, a strong stakeholder participation. In general, Austria is following a mainstreaming approach, and then there is this so-called interministerial working group of the government that is coordinating everything that is done on federal level. Austria this year presented for the second time. So the first time 2020, it was only online, and then I think, I mean, a lot of lessons were learned from this first time. I think the main thing is that the work with the VNRs has to start really early for both the governments and all the other stakeholders, because if you start only in fall or in winter, I think it's really too late. We also very good from the first VNR is that we kept the dialogue with the government open. So in general, what I can observe is either you go the I would say confrontational approach or the more cooperational approach, and we decided to go for the second one. It was very close in the first VNR to have it more confrontational. But then the right people were at the right place, and then we kind of build up trust. And I think this is all about trust when it comes to cooperate with and when it comes to VNRs and that's why also we did not publish or write a shadow report. The other reason is for the first VNR we always threatened the government we would write, but it's also a question of resources, of course. For the second one, we did not really think about writing because we were involved anyway quite well. So we came up with an official letter, what our demands are, our recommendations are. We always were in exchange with them, formally, informally. And we finally also were part of the delegation, although we did not present, I have to say. We were not on the panel. It was only the minister and a representative of the academia. But we were exchanging with this person before, so we could get our demands also therein. We were present at the official side event, Austrian side event, and also an unofficial side event co-organized by the Ban Ki-moon Center. Yeah, I think I will. For us, the most important thing is that we were for the VNR was that we could co-write the parts of the VNR. So we always got the drafts and we could change things. This was very important for us to really have a permanent, and not in the end getting the whole thing, but really looking at the chapters. The second thing is the outlook. For us, it was very important to what is in the outlook of the VNR. So we are still not having this body we want. We still want a mechanism that permanently is in place. We still don't have the SDG budgeting. We are now going into unsecure times because people are leaving and the minister is leaving, and we don't have a government right now. So that's why we think it's so important to have a mechanism that remains even if governments change. So this is something we are still not having. And also the UniNets, also this cooperation of the universities, it's not sure they will continue, but not because it's not funded, but because the directors or the deans of the universities, they cannot agree on who gets which part of the budget, which is a little bit a shame. Then here, very briefly, what I mentioned before, this annual event we are co-organizing with the federal administration, with us and the Ban Ki-moon Center. And it was always really interesting. We got really a lot of people there, and 4 ministers this year, a regional governor was there. So it was always high level for exchanging on interesting topics, and it of course also strengthens the trust. I think I will skip this because I said everything, and anyway I'm gonna happily share the presentation. It's important to have red lines. It's important to start early. It's important to have a permanent exchange, which is of course not a one-way thing. It has to come from the government, but also from our side, of course. We also, of course, had a permanent exchange to our member organizations. I mean, this is as important to explain why we are doing what we are doing. I think it's important, I said already, to start early. The Outlook chapter, I think it's also important in the VNR to have already an anchor for the next steps. But I also said it's quite uncertain what will happen because some people left because we don't have a government. We don't know which parties will be there and if they have as interest. And I can see it throughout Europe, being also representing also SDG Watch Europe. That's in some member states, it's really the interest is decreasing, and also on the European Union level. Just we hope we would have an intergroup in the European Parliament, an SDG intergroup, but eventually it failed. So things are not going very well, but yeah, that's our task also from the NGOs side to fight back. Thank you very much, and back to Magdalena.
Thank you, Bernhard. And yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. And I think despite the uncertainties and challenges that you mentioned now, in the end, I think that Austria is a really great example on stakeholder involvement in the voluntary national review. And unfortunately, I think it's also a rather exceptional case that civil society is engaged in all stages in drafting this review. And with this, I will directly jump to our next presentation, which is from Azerbaijan. I actually invite Nelia for the presentation because due to security reasons, colleagues from Azerbaijan cannot present themselves. So Nelia, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Magdalena. And I, first of all, would like to make a disclaimer again that I will present on behalf of colleagues from Azerbaijan. And of course, I maybe will not be able to answer all the questions, but we can definitely forward them to colleagues if you wish. And this situation is due to closed civic space in Azerbaijan, which probably many of you are aware of. And it's according to not only our partners with whom we work, but also Civicus reporting about this situation in Azerbaijan, of course. And I can tell you that we had a conference just recently in Vilnius where we had the opportunity to discuss also situation in Azerbaijan, and we were informed that there was a process which was happening around VNR this year, also engaging particular safe partners for the government. But even this kind of consultations, they had only one-way input. So basically, colleagues were invited to join some meetings with the government, but they were just allowed to listen and not to contribute anyhow to the conversation. From our side, as SDG Lens, we supported a production of one report, which I shortly will present today, where several experts from Azerbaijan tried to reflect on the situation independently on several SDGs, not on all of them, but as you can see on the slide, 6 of them. And and I hope colleagues will also share the link to the report, which was produced by colleagues from Azerbaijan. So I will quickly go through the findings, which were highlighted by the experts, by the independent experts. And here we can see that on SDG 5 on gender equality, Azerbaijan actually has some legislative progress, which happening in many countries, as we know, but still there are problems with social norms and limited awareness and rights among women. And of course, on this basis, domestic violence still is taking place, and there are observed limited reproductive rights, and in general, which is quite typical for the region, low female political representation. And here also, we see recommendations that, of course, colleagues recommend to raise awareness on the problems also within women, to do legislative reforms, improve legal aid, enhance increase amount of shelters, make it workable, and also ratification of Istanbul Convention, which is still didn't happen. In terms of SDG 6 on clear water and sanitation, here again there is some progress which is made by Azerbaijan in terms of creating state water resource agency, and there was some improvement in sewage systems. However, still there are big challenges in outdated infrastructure, water waste management, and of course the growing threat of climate change, which can cause water scarcity. And in terms of recommendations, again, colleagues suggest improve the regulation, public involvement, rural infrastructure, upgrades, and also international cooperation in terms of transboundary water resources because of the climate change, of course, challenges as well. In terms of SDG 7, we know that this year Azerbaijan actually hosted COP29, but still the major focus of the country stays with carbon fossil fuel energy. Even there is some international cooperation and partnerships happening around renewable energy projects. At the same time, even there is all the necessary resources for solar, wind, and hydro energy projects, they are still not taking widely place in Azerbaijan. Then in terms of recommendations, private investments, adoption of energy efficient technology, and in general promotion of sustainable energy transition is necessary within the country. Industry, innovation, infrastructure, SDG 9. Again, there is some modernization happening in terms of industrial and transport infrastructure in the country. But however, the main challenges are about weak public-private partnerships, which also supported with insufficient funding, which basically doesn't let progress to happen properly. And here again, colleagues recommend fostering innovation ecosystem, improving transport networks, and prioritizing sustainable and inclusive practices. Infrastructure in the city still also progressing, and I think it's mainly also happening in the capital due to also high-level international events. But again, cultural heritage preservation face challenging, public spaces, insufficient urban transport planning. And here again, we see necessity of enhancing urban mobility, community inclusive development, heritage preservation, and resilience building against environmental risks. And the final SDG, which was under review in the report, it's climate action. As I mentioned already, COP29 was hosted by Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, it didn't bring the results we all wanted to see. And here we can also, of course, see that many policies in Azerbaijan are still lacking to be put in practice. Even there is an international commitment to follow the climate agenda, but still there we need to see stronger policy enforcement, fostering renewable energy use, as already mentioned in SDG 7, and of course raising awareness campaigns on climate change impacts and mitigation. In general, the overall challenge within the country is about lack of data information. And of course, this is what civil society is trying to, and our partners to bridge this gap, producing by this kind of reports, but also, as other colleagues mentioned, limited funding for certain SDG is also observing within the Azerbaijan. And of course, on top of that is close civic space, which we observe within the country. So I hope I managed to cover everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And of course, you can read more in the report which was sent to you.
Exactly. Nelia, thank you very much for presenting results of Shadow Report on behalf of colleagues from Azerbaijan. And as mentioned, you will find a link in the chat. And I would like to invite now our speaker from Georgia, Sofiko Babalashvili, from CEN, Caucasus Environmental NGO Network, to also present insights on alternative reporting and People's Scorecard.
Thank you very much, Magdalena, for the floor. First, before delve deeper into the findings of the Shadow Report and also the processes during this year regarding the engagement of civil society organizations in the monitoring and reviewing of SDGs, I want to start with a thank you to the SDG Lens program. I wanted to underline the importance of the capacity building that you have provided over the last 2-3 years for the organizations in the Eastern Europe. Your program was crucial and critical for strengthening our understanding and knowledge regarding the monitoring and also the advocacy of the implementation of sustainable development goals. So once again, thank you very much for that, and also thank for the opportunity to develop the alternative shadow reports. I also wanted to show you some pictures from the ongoing processes in Georgia. We have massive strikes again in the streets because several days ago, the government of Georgia, the prime minister, officially declared that they are going to stop any kind of negotiations with the European Union. for the country's integration. Which this of course caused massive strikes in the country, not only in the Tbilisi, the capital, but also in the regions. But the police and the large forces of police are mobilized, and these peaceful protestants they are violated every day. So the situation is quite critical in the country. First, I wanted to start with overviewing the process. So as it's already known for all of you, the Georgia submitted its third voluntary national review this year. But the process of developing this document was coincided with the processes of adopting so-called foreign agents law in the country, which make mandatory for the civil society organizations and also media platforms to register as the influencers of foreign as agents of foreign influences. So this of course created a constraining general environment for the civil society and decreased the motivation among CSOs to engage in the process. So while we're talking about the engaging, it requires willingness from both of the sides, right? So on the one hand, there was a minimal willingness from the government to invite civil society organizations as the partners, but on the other hand, these political processes also limited the encouragement and motivation among civil society organizations to support the governments in the preparation process. Then from the last moments until the July, I said June, July, civil society organizations did not receive any kind of feedback or information about the processes from the SDG Council. We were only received the draft document of the VNR. Just before 10 days, the high-level political forum. So it was unable to reflect the whole document and provide comments, respective comments. But also, as I already mentioned, we as a civil society did not even have the willingness due to the decreased shrinking space for civil society organizations to contribute and comment to that document. So to summarize, there were absence of consultations as national as subnational levels. In the official document, we are reading that independent expert was hired to provide the development of the document, and the stakeholders were also engaged. But it's untransparent and unclear who were those stakeholders and what was their recommendations and to what extent those recommendations were reflected. And the absolute majority of the data provided in the voluntary national review is generated from the National Statistics Office, and the data from international organizations or local NGOs or some alternative sources is not available there. But fortunately, to the SDG Lens program, we started working regarding the establishment of a non-formal civil society coalition in Georgia, which is an achievement because before that in the country there are no any consolidated platform of civil society organizations who would promote the SDG monitoring and SDG advocacy issues, only some separated organizations. But this year, we had the pleasure to leverage the support from the SDG Lens and several civil society organizations you are seeing now on the slide decided to join our forces and work collectively on developing the alternative shadow report to address the voluntary official voluntary national report. The coordination responsibility in this process had Caucasus Environmental NGO Network, but we at final level we managed to develop very in-depth SDG reviews on 10 sustainable development goals. SEN also created several reviews, but other organizations also contributed considering their expertise. For example, Georgian Farmers Association contributed to SDG 2, the Coalition Education for All SDG 4, Association HERA 21, who is working regarding women's rights and reproductive health, contributed with a large scale and extensive scale because they managed to mobilize other up to 10 organizations in Georgia who are working regarding gender issues to also take part in our shadow report. The main finding from the shadow report is that since 2020 till 2040, the quality of democracy in the country is deteriorated, and which is resulted in a lot of other things. For example, complicated access to information, negotiations or partnership with local authorities, the shrinking civil society space and attacks to independent media, and etc.
Please summarize, Sofiko.
Yes, very shortly. But the major and the dramatic deterioration in the country relates to the SDG 16 and the three main areas. First is the adoption of laws that are against the human rights. Second, it's access to public information, and second is the falling of press freedom. This is also the challenges regarding some specific sustainable development goals. And at the end, I wanted to spread the word that the final version of the report will be published in the upcoming days on the webpage of the SDG Lens. In case of any questions, I'm here and free to answer all of them. And once again, thank you very much for your support and understanding and encouraging in these hard political circumstances in my country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sofiko, not only for giving like an overview of the results of your alternative report that will be shared very soon, also through the SDG Lens website, but also of the critical situation in your country. And of course, we are supporting the efforts of civil society. So thank you, and we're very grateful that you joined us despite all this today. I would now like to give the floor to our last speaker, Maria Gonzalez from Spain, representing the organization Inicio, Futuro en Común, to reflect on national VNR processes and also civil society insights on alternative reporting.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting Futuro en Común. I am going to present, but just a minute. I don't know if I'm doing it fine. Can you see my presentation? But not in presentation mode, is it?
Yes, exactly.
Can you see it now? No.
Not in presentation mode, but I think you can, if it doesn't work, we can see well enough.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
No, okay. You are still seeing it? Or you are seeing
I see it. Yeah, I see it in non-presentation.
In non-presentation, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, I'll start so we don't lose more time. Okay, thank you very much. In case you haven't heard of Futuro en Común, let me introduce our platform. It is an umbrella cross-sectorial platform of civil society is a Spanish civil society that brings together organizations from many different sectors, feminists, from environmental organizations, youth organizations, and also NGOs working on global justice, childhood rights, trade unions, migration, many different sectors that we all work together for a transformative 2030 agenda implementation in our country. Regarding, just going to the point, regarding the stakeholder engagement processes here in Spain, I have to say that it was a little bit disappointed. We had many expectations with this VNR, but we had unexpected and early elections in 2023. So there was a change of government and the new 2030 agenda representatives. They took over the previous government commitment about presenting VNR, but they had to elaborate it in just a few months, so it was not possible, or that's at least what they said, that it was not possible to open a truly participative process. What we actually did manage to do was we delivered an opinion in the Sustainable Development Council, in which Futuro en Común has 3 seats. So jointly with the other stakeholders that are represented in this council, we managed to deliver an opinion. We coordinated the specific working group on the opinion, and we promoted an agreement among all the different stakeholders. It's academia, private sector, trade unions, and governmental actors also, besides civil society. So I was saying we promoted an agreement among all these stakeholders to make some recommendations to the VNR, and we requested our government not only about the content of the VNR, but also about what was coming after the VNR, what was going to happen after, and the real changes and transitions that we consider that needed to be made here in Spain. So we specifically focused on demanding a reformulation of the Sustainable Development Strategy, national strategy, all its targets until 2013, and also focusing on the new level policies to reach these targets, because we thought they needed to be more ambitious and more transformative. And we also demanded for a mindful monitoring mechanism and a comprehensive system to ensure policy coherence for sustainable development. All these recommendations were included in the opinion of the Sustainable Development Council, and we were also part of the VNR presentation at the high-level political forum since Futuro en Común. As I said, we have 3 seats in the council, but we also hold the vice presidency of this council, so we managed to open the presentation of the VNR to the not only to the different stakeholders of the council, but also to the regions and municipalities of Spain, and we could speak at the VNR presentation in behalf of the whole council. We also provided a statement from the NGO major group, also focusing on the same regards. Here, the picture that you are seeing is on the screen is my colleague providing the statement from the NGO major group. Okay, so that's here. Sorry, I didn't move the slides. Sorry, nothing's happening. I think that my connection is not very strong, so you are only seeing the first slide, are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The other ones are blank, unfortunately, but it's not a problem.
Sorry. Okay, I will go on. but you are only watching the logos of the organizations that are involved in Futuro en Común. So sorry, because I wanted to share with you at least the pictures of the process. But okay, we started working on our alternative report in September 2023. After going to the high-level political forum and learning about the report that the Secretary General had commissioned from the Global Independent Scientific Committee, which called on member states to base their national strategies on the 2030 Agenda, and in addition to focus on the interactions and interlinkages between the different challenges and the policies to address these challenges, very much in line with what Futuro en Común had been demanding from our government. So we decided to hold to this independent scientific committee report and to demand to position our report not only as what civil society is recommending, but also it comes from the independent scientific committee. So we've begun several workshops to work collaboratively and intersectorally on a shared diagnosis and the identification of the most strategic level policies to achieve the ambitious goals we propose for 2030, sorry. And we also prepared several testimonies from people who embody the issues we denounce, but who also have a history of a struggle and activism around these issues.
Maria, please summarize.
Yes, I'm ending. Well, we managed to present the report in March to the minister responsible of 2030 Agenda and almost 200 people representing different stakeholders. And after the VNR, we have continued a dialogue on our alternative report with different ministers of Spain, and also we managed to go to the parliament and we have presented it to different political groups. And now we are working in the National Sustainable for Development Council on the recommendations that we were appointed in our report, and we have managed to open a participative process for the revision of the national strategy on sustainable development. So we think that we have succeeded at least a little bit. And I'm going to share the links of our report and also the executive summary in English. And that's it. Sorry.
Thank you. Oh, fine. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for sharing your experience of engagement in the voluntary national review, but also your insights as in drafting alternative report. And colleagues already shared also the Spanish report and also presentation, so you can follow the links. So we are already a little bit advanced in time, but I invite you to now ask any questions that you might have for our speakers. And so please feel free to either write in the chat or just raise your hand and ask your questions. No need to be shy.
Sorry, I have some difficulties to find how to raise the hand.
Okay.
So I will just unmute myself. While me and my colleagues reflecting the whole process, we are still committed to continue our efforts to contribute to the SDG monitoring and SDG advocacy. That's why I think from the next year, from 2025. At least we will continue to coordinate and organize some internal meetings to reflect our responsibilities and how we can in our projects integrate these SDG monitoring and SDG advocacy actions to not stop and build upon the achievements that we have this year. So I think that any other programs or any other capacity building opportunities that will emerge will be critical, not only for my organization, but also for all of us who were represented here today. Because yes, we already advanced because accumulated some kind of experience how to provide alternative reports, but we wanted to continue and advance ourselves regarding that. So we are open to more experienced organizations who are producing such kind of reports every year to connect with us, partners from Eastern Europe and the Caucasus. So we are open to collaboration.
Thank you, Sofiko. And I think you are touching a very important point, also the need for exchange of experiences between different civil society actors from different countries, also different regions. So yeah, I think your call is to be heard both from SDG Lens colleagues, but I hope also from European colleagues. Also, I can see now that Ollie wrote a question in the chat. Ollie, maybe you want to ask yourself quickly, because I don't know what is the FFD4 conference. So.
Oh, thank you, Magdalena. Sorry, it was a question for Maria in Spain. Just if there was any potential connection from your advocacy last year towards this coming year, the Financing for Development conference, which will be hosted in Spain in June. We know it has a key opportunity to get some new focus on funding also for the SDGs. So it'd be good to hear any insights you might have on that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. In the framework, we have a very we are talking with our government, and of course we are focusing on this conference due to the results of the Summit of the Future and disappointed results, as you all know, and we are trying to advocate for an Spanish ambitious position in the conference, but as we are the facilitators, well, the Spanish government is the facilitator. They don't they want to keep a neutral role, but we are pushing them to make alliances with other countries which are going to be more active in the negotiations in the key issues and where there is an opportunity, a window of opportunity to get ambitious results, but we don't know if there is a window of opportunity anymore with the current context. But we hope that some issues might be achieved. Ambitious agreements, and we are also working with them to ensure a very participative process in the preparations and also in Sevilla, and we are pushing for a very representative participation from the Global South. And what else can I tell you? Now we already, as you might know, we already have the elements paper from the official from the United Nations, from the first elements paper document, and we've been working on the reaction. But of course, we are inspired by the mechanism of civil society for the participation in the conference. So I don't know, but it's a very complicated process, and we have many lines of action open. But if you are interested, we could have a specific meeting on this topic, because there are many things happening and they're so fast that I don't know if you have a specific question, or we can have another meeting.
Thank you, Maria, for elaborating on this question. Are there any questions for our speakers? So this is now the last chance. If not, as mentioned, you can find the links to reports in the chat, but it also will be published, especially like reports from our colleagues from Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia on the SDG Lands website, so you can also follow up. And then I would like to come to an end. And before I would give the word for Nelia for the final remarks, I would like to ask you I would like to make a short picture. This is like for our documentation process of colleagues, but also maybe just some nice faces. That would be really great. Of course, if you're not comfortable, you can leave your camera closed. But yeah, that already looks amazing. So I would say we give a nice smile, and colleagues from SDG Lens will now shoot the pictures. So please, thank you. Arutun is also joining, so please smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
We can just say SDGs and we will smile.
SDG. Thank you. Thank you for posing for the picture. And now, Nelia, please, the final remark is for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're just trying to be on time. And I really, Oli also, of course, here with his MJOS hat. But now, I will switch the hat and will speak probably as a VNR task group lead, and remind you that next year in our region, we have 9 countries reporting. Hannah already mentioned this year. And of course, we will continue working and supporting our organizations from our region as we can. I also see Valentina here with us today. And we will, on behalf of MJOS, facilitate the process. We will this year agree that we will start in January, spread the form for colleagues, especially here from Kazakhstan, I see, but all other countries, to join the process, to prepare the joint statement, which can be delivered at the UN and during the HLPF. We are facing financial struggles again, and it will be our challenge this year again to find resources, to find the ways how to bring colleagues to New York, because it's always, last year it was a really, really complicated issue, but we still believe that all voices should be heard, independent stakeholders should be heard, and we will try to make sure that it will happen. Everything that we can do. Unfortunately, we cannot do everything we want, but we will try our best to achieve that. So with this, I would like to conclude this meeting, and thank you everyone who joined and shared their experience. I think sharing these national experiences are always important, that we hear actually what is happening on the ground. And I hope that you also had an opportunity to learn something new today. Thank you.
Thank you also very much from my side.
Take care.
And
Thank
have a great day.
Thank you, Valentina, to really be
It was really
supportive
nice to
for
meet
us. Thank you.
families.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you,
Thank
Oli.
you.
Have a nice
We'll be in
day.
touch.
Yes, stay
Thank
in
you.
touch.
We'll work together. Yeah.
Work together. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.